We have family in Florida, so most summers we enjoy taking a long, leisurely drive down there to stay with them for quite some time. We have seen all sorts of weird and wonderful sights on those drives. We'll see something and all call it out. After all, it only happens in Florida. But they have all been fun, weird, silly, odd, and downright hilarious. We have only ever seen two things that have scared us on those long drives. One time, we drove past what looked like a carjacking. Rightly or wrong, Dad put his foot on the gas, and we sped past as fast as we could. No way we were going to try and stop and help when we saw guns. Mom did call 911 though. We're not heartless. That scared us all, and for days after, I kept thinking they'd seen the plates. So much so, I made Dad buy an overpriced Disney vanity plate, just so they couldn't track us down. As scary as that was, you just need to turn on the news to hear it. The other time we were all freaked out. That's the kind of thing they don't tend to show you on the news. Our family ain't in Orlando or even Jacksonville. They live in the part of Florida that most tourists don't likely even know exist. There's lots of swampland, and you gotta be really careful about gators. But I feel like most Floridans know that. Everybody where they live knows that. We all know that from our hours we spent driving. So when we first saw the gator on the side of the road, we were glad we were all in the car. But of course, seeing a gator that up close and knowing you are safe being inside a hunk of metal, my brother was all like, drive past real slow so I can see his teeth. You know, the kind of thing only a 10-year-old boy would say. It was kind of funny. Like maybe had it broken a limb or something, and he wanted to see if it was all gnarly. Of course, my dad, who oftentimes still thought he was a 10-year-old boy too, did just that. We slowed right down to drive past and get a good look at this thing, when all of a sudden, it stands up completely on two legs. The reason it had been walking funny was because it had long legs, not like what belongs on gators at all. So it stands up on those not right legs and looks right at us. And I swear, my entire family gasped in unison as we noticed its eyes were like that of a person. Its head and neck should by rights be stuck up in the air, but no. It bends like a person, so its eyes and mouth are looking right at us. Then it opens its huge jaws and takes a run towards the car. At this point, my little brother and I are crying, screaming. Mom in the front is telling our father to get out of there, and thankfully, that's just what he does, flooring the car, leaving us nearly wrecked. My mother said it gave chase for a while, but gladly it gave up. That's one of the worst memories I've ever had in my life. In fact, my family and I don't even really talk about it. It's not exactly traumatic, but something we don't like to acknowledge, I guess, if you want to say that. A little later on in life, when I would learn more about the people and the natives that live in this area of the world, Florida and the South, I would learn that I guess there's supposed rituals that would turn some of the tribesmen into humanoid reptilian beings, or reptilian shapeshifters, I guess if you want to call it that. My thoughts and memory immediately put me back to that memory I just recalled for you, and I wonder, did we run into one of those things that was scouring the swamp? We'll never know. I was driving home from work one night when I saw somebody standing at the side of the road. To start with, I thought it might have been a hitchhiker, and my first thought was, who the hell these days wants to be picked up by a stranger? They were facing away from me, and I found it a little odd that they didn't seem to notice my car was coming towards them. Not that I was going to directly hit them. There was plenty of space, but I found it strange that they did not even turn towards me when they saw my lights. It was pretty dark at this point. Then, as I got closer, I began to notice something very weird about this person. At first, because it was dark, I thought they were dressed in dark military clothing. There was a lot of green and brown, but as I get closer, it looked nothing like clothing. Then, and I say it because I realized it was not a person. It looked and turned at me. Its body didn't move, just its head. And honest to God Almighty, the best way I'm able to describe it would be to say it was a lizard person. Simple. It was tall like a man, which was why I had first assumed it to be a human. It was entirely naked. It seemed to be covered in a weird slime, I guess. It had long, slender legs, and the head of a very elongated lizard, like a damn huge lizard. It didn't move its body at all, just the head, with unblinking eyes as my car drove past. And yes, you can bet I put my foot down on the gas and I drove. I looked in my mirror, just so I could see from my taillights that it never moved. It just remained there, staring at my car as I disappeared. I'll never forget that night, knowing there are other animals out there that exist, beyond my comprehension. I'm a sanitation technician in the Florida waterways. I'll leave the town I work for out of it, since I don't want anything to trace back to me, and potentially risk losing my job and career, especially in times of COVID-19. Everybody knows the economy is strained enough with all the joblessness. I really wish not to be counted among them. Anyway, sanitation technician. It's just a fancy way of saying that if you have a problem in your sewer in Florida, I'm most likely the guy that has to take care of it. Yay. I mean, we've all heard the stories about crocodiles in sewers. It's not exactly impossible. And chances are the story that you've heard isn't true. But that doesn't mean that those scaly things have never set foot inside. But I have a story for you that's more true than any of the stories that you've ever heard. Well, my story is also going to be less believable than anything you've ever heard. So bear with me. Some parts of town were experiencing flooding some time ago, specifically their basements, and other signs that the sewers were backing up. This was puzzling, because it was during a very dry spell. Well, dry for the Florida area. So naturally, they sent me and a few others to do underground work to investigate. You would think that in this line of work, which is oh so critical, there would be more state-of-the-art equipment that would help us. There was tons of trial and error, searching down in the dark, with all the million things that are above ground. It didn't take us long to find out what was obstructing the flow of water. We just weren't sure what to make of it. And at first, we thought that they were rocks, but they appeared too round and too consistent in size. The first thing I thought when I saw them is they kind of looked like very, very large crocodile eggs, or alligator eggs. I always intermix the two, but it's important to note, as a Florida native, to those who read this, that no, crocodiles do not live in Florida. It's only alligators, at least to my knowledge. But anyway, what kind of animal gets into the sewers and lays eggs, especially of this size? I'm kidding you not. They were shy of being the size of literal basketballs, which would mean that there is an enormous mama alligator somewhere. I mean, I guess it's not too unheard of to have a 50-foot alligator, maybe in a movie, but not here in reality. So that's where my mind immediately went to. A few of these were as small as cantaloupes, but not many. My thoughts were then interrupted by a loud splash beside me. I turned my light onto something huge, scaly, and appearing to scramble to its feet to reach a size of at least 3 or 4 heads taller than I. The eyes were large and copper-colored, and they were full and teeming of hate that I had never seen in an animal's eyes before. It looked like somebody had crossbred a professional wrestler with a dinosaur, and the sight, smell, and sound of the thing terrified me and electrified my nerves. This thing then turned and jumped into the water next to us. I had no idea what this was or what it was planning. I had never seen an animal or creature like this in my life, but me and my crew used this moment of advantage and bolted during the critical moment. We all told the same story, having witnessed the same thing, but all of us were suspended without payment. So, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity to really get this story out there, and I'm trying to remain anonymous, as to hopes it doesn't come back on me. But if more people can be mindful of the things that actually exist, and stop being so quick to write off things we don't really know about in our reality, I think we'd be a lot more prepared for the unknown. I was hunting alligators in an area that is probably illegal, so I'm just going to tell you that I was in a swamp where many crocs are, and that many people aren't. I guess I'm considered very skittish, so I choose to be up in hunting blinds as to guarantee that I have the element of surprise nearly every time. After all, I've never seen a croc once being able to properly climb a tree. Eventually, it did happen, and I saw movement down below, where it almost looked like a dead log was drifting along. It was a drifting log that had scales, so I knew I had found my catch. If you don't know what to look for, well, anything can be very convincing. I aimed for where the head was and fired. I smiled to myself and began to make my way down. If I had acted a second sooner, I would consider myself in serious trouble. The water sprayed as if a bomb had gone off. Some sort of lizard monster leapt out onto the grass, and it was giving every indication of being full of rage. The reason why, well, I just took a shot at it. There was a large wound in its right shoulder. The thing standing upright on 2 feet that had a large barrel-shaped body hinted at the fact clearly that it wasn't an average alligator. This thing was an abomination. Its back being slightly haunched. It's blasting me with ear-splitting shrieks, and it whipped around, looking at me. The snout had been longer, and it could have easily passed for a dinosaur. Except the dinosaurs don't act like this. It set its gaze on me, and then took a step toward, getting ready to attack. I didn't come down from my blind until I couldn't hold my nose any more than I needed to. I wasn't going to waste any more time, so I took several more shots at this thing. And in order to avoid my bullets, this thing dove back into the water and disappeared underneath. Where it went, I'm not exactly sure. But that never happened though. It never resurfaced. Has anybody else spotted lizards out here that can walk like this? Or are they just built like a wrestler? I've reached out to this sub because, well, I'm looking for answers. Part of me really wants to think that it was just a dream that I had all the while nodding off in a blind. But maybe I'm missing the rounds for my ammo, so I know that the encounter did happen. I have to be more afraid now than ever for the law looking out for illegal hunting, and it feels like I may never actually sleep peacefully again. So, I'm wanting to ask you guys, what the hell did I see? What did I encounter,